Hi everyone. Tonight, hopefully, I'll be providing information about the case study research method. While I was not familiar with this method before I began my own research, it seems that the case study process of interviews, observations, and document analysis seems to align rather naturally to my work as a journalist. So here we go. I'll begin with an introduction to where and when the case study was defined. We'll explore the basics, including how and when to use it as a research method, how to collect data. We'll also examine the advantages and disadvantages. We'll take a look at a few examples, and then we'll discuss your research problem with the case study method. We'll begin with the definition of the case study research design. Robert K. Yin is an American social scientist. He was born in New York in 1941, obtained his BA in history from Harvard, and then went on to pursue his PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in brain and cognitive sciences. It was at graduate school that Yin published his first works on face recognition in the field of experimental psychology and neuroscience. He later focused on case study research in public policy. In 1980, Yin founded the Cosmos Corporation in Bethesda, Maryland. According to the company website, Cosmos Corporation provides applied research, technological support, and management assistance aimed at improving public policy, private enterprise, and collaborative ventures. Beyond his role as president of that company, Dr. Yin is known for his work on case study research. His book, Case Study Research Design and Methods, is currently in its fifth edition. It was first released in 1984. He defined the case study research method as an empirical inquiry that investigates a contemporary phenomenon within its real-life context, when the boundaries between phenomenon and context are not clearly evident, and in which multiple sources of evidence are used. So let's take a look at some of the key words here. Contemporary phenomenon. It's rather a general term, but it means something that's going on. Could be a person, an organization, an event, a group, even a place, happening now, within its real-life context, as opposed to experiments which happen in the lab or inside an office. A case study happens out wherever it is happening naturally, bringing into account that it's happening with all of these other things happening around them. There are multiple sources of evidence, interviews, observations, going into organizations and observing them, inside an office or a factory, for example. So again, the focus of the study can be individuals, communities, social groups, organizations, or even events. Let's go back to the basics one more time. A case study is an in-depth study of a particular situation rather than a sweeping statistical survey. It is a method used to drill down a very broad field of research into one easily researchable subject. The case study research design is also useful for testing whether scientific theories and models actually work in the real world. For example, we could come up with a great computer model, but it is only by trying it out in reality that we can determine if it is a realistic simulation. But since we're all fans of Chris Flip, I'll let him take it from here.
Have you ever heard of a case study? Come on, let's go on a journey and learn what case studies are and how to conduct them. Ba-da-da-da! Welcome to another Journey with Chris, where we will attain new levels of knowledge and awesomeness. Hello, scholars. Today we're going to journey through case study. On our journey, we're going to cover what is case study methods, the limitations of case study. So what is a case study? Well, let's define a couple of words first. First, the word case. What's a case? It could be an event, a problem, a process, an activity, a program, a single person, or several people. A case could be any one of these things. A lot of times with case studies, you'll read about a case study being conducted within a bounded system. The bounded system is the boundaries of the case. These boundaries are usually either time and or space. So the case happening within a certain amount of time or within a geographical location. That's the boundaries of that case. Another thing that characterizes case study is the multiple sources of data that are used in case studies. Case studies don't just rely on just interviews or maybe also observations. Usually case studies include almost every kind of qualitative data, like interviews, observations, documents, artifacts, and so on. There's multiple types of data are included for case studies because with case studies, researchers are looking to provide a very in-depth understanding of that case. There are typically three types of case studies. Single instrumental case study. This is when the researcher focuses first on an issue or a concern and then selects a bounded case to illustrate that issue or concern. Next is collective or multiple case study. This is similar to the single instrumental case study because the researcher first focuses on an issue or concern. The difference between the two, single instrumental or collective multiple, is that in collective multiple, the researcher then selects several bounded cases to illustrate that issue or concern. Single instrumental case study is just one case, collective multiple is several cases. So, multiple bounded cases are chosen in order to show various perspectives about that issue or concern. The next is intrinsic case study. In contrast to the single and collective multiple case studies, the intrinsic case study does not first focus on an issue or concern and then go find a case or cases to illustrate that issue. Instead, intrinsic case study is about a case itself. This is the researchers studying a case that's unique or unusual and then study it. Okay, let's talk about case study methods. First step, determine if a case study will answer your research question, which is probably something about gaining an in-depth understanding of a case or cases within clearly identified bounded system, which is the boundaries of the case, and again is usually time or space. Next step, if a case study would help you to answer your research question, researchers should identify the case or cases and which of the three types of case studies best fit the interest of the researcher and answering their research questions. After collecting data, the researcher analyzes the data. If the case study was a single instrumental case study, then the researcher will analyze all the forms of data and create themes from the data. This is called the analysis of themes. If the case study was a collective multiple case study, the researcher will analyze all of the forms of data and create themes found in each case, which is called a within-case analysis. Then, the researcher will conduct a cross-case analysis. This is when the researcher sees what themes are common between all of the cases. Finally, the researcher will make assertions, which means an interpretation of what the meaning of the data regarding the case. This also includes making statements about the lessons learned from the case, which is what should be learned from the meaning of the data of that case study. Let's talk about the limitations of case studies. First, it can be hard to determine the case, whether to find an issue cause first and then find a case to illustrate it, or to just study a case for itself. It can also be challenging to determine whether to study one or multiple cases. It can also be challenging to define the boundaries of the case. And by studying more than one case, that means that the researcher will probably go into less depth for each case because they're trying to study multiple cases. All right, that's it for this journey. Thanks for a great journey, and I'll see you in class.
Now, I'd like to go over a few of the specifics. The case study is focused, remember, on the process or how it was done and the outcome. Does it work? For example, if your school, your study is trying to address what is happening or what has happened, how or why did something happen? Dr. Button, this one's for you. How and why is a high school principal, how has she done a good job? How a collective bargaining negotiation was successful or not? Or what is life like in an all-girls private school? A case study is also used when conducting evaluations. How and when to use case study as a research design, Dr. Yin includes the following steps: plan, design, prepare, collect, analyze, and then share. So how do you collect the data? There are direct observations, including human actions and physical environment, interviews, which could be open-ended conversations with participants, archival records, perhaps student records, documents, including newspapers, emails, reports, physical artifacts like computer downloads of employees' work, document analysis, and surveys. Remember, there is participant and non-participant observation and participatory or action research. If we're looking at the strengths and weaknesses or the disadvantages and advantages, now you may think, wow, I like the fact that this method happens inside a real-world environment. The case study method, though, is often used as a last resort. And it's probably because you can't generalize the results to a wider population. Sometimes it is seen as not involving a serious, but rather a less rigorous inquiry. The credibility of the researchers are often questioned, trying to find out what he or she has set out to find. that is, their own subjective feelings, influence the case study. It's difficult to replicate, it's often time consuming, and case study often represents a mass of indigestible data and presents the conclusions without showing the logical inferences from evidence that make those conclusions possible. But what the case study can do is provide detailed and rich qualitative information, provide insight for further research, and allow for an investigation into perhaps an otherwise impractical situation. Let's take an example of a case study.
In 1848, Phineas Gage is working on a railroad in Cavendish. He's packing the powder down with the tamping iron, blowing up rocks. The charge detonates prematurely, and this tamping iron, this 3-foot 7-inch, 13.5-pound tamping iron, fires into Phineas Gage's head. It enters into his left cheek, it passes behind his left eye, it severs his optic nerve, and then comes out his forehead and lands 30 yards away. Phineas Gage was able to survive, having a 3-foot 7-inch bar shot transcranially through his head. In 1850, Henry Jacob Bigelow, who was the professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School at the time, brought Gage and John Harlow, his doctor, to Harvard for an examination. Bigelow essentially concludes that this man did have a giant iron bar shot through his head and did survive, and he publishes the case in 1850. After the accident, Phineas Gage goes from businesslike and efficient to no longer able to follow through with his plans. He becomes the textbook case for post-traumatic personality change. And that's why you find him in a lot of the modern medical, neuroscience, psychology literature. Phineas Gage has been at Harvard Medical School for 160 years. So in many ways, I see him similarly to how you would see one of the famous professors who hang on the wall. He's an important part of Harvard Medical School's identity. And by continually reflecting on his case, it allows us to continually change how we want to understand the human brain and how we interact with our historical understanding of neuroscience.
So this American crowbar case, as it is known, the miraculous survival of Phineas Gage, the effect of the injury upon his character, made him an important case study for scientists hoping to find out more about the brain. Moving on to our next example, Wendy's is an American fast food restaurant chain founded by, hey, we know him, Dave Thomas. Wendy's is one of the largest fast food chains in the world. Consumers went to Wendy's every day with calories and health on their minds. Well, some of them did anyway. So they took this insight and created My Wendy's mobile app. Take a look at this case study video to learn more about their first ever personalized nutrition-based app made Wendy catapult into success.
Wendy's may be best known for their square, juicy hamburgers and chocolate frosties, but millions of consumers flock to the fast food giant every day with calories and health on their minds. 30 minutes before the lunch rush, we saw a spike in website traffic to Wendy's nutrition page. So we took this insight and catapulted Wendy's into the health-conscious community with the creation of the My Wendy's mobile app. This bold initiative demonstrates personalization at its finest, providing hungry and hurried consumers healthy menu options right at their fingertips. Consumers can easily customize their meal in 2 ways, by selecting from a list of menu options based on their calorie range, or by choosing each menu item to reach their specified caloric goal. The My Wendy's app gives consumers the power to personalize each menu item. From adding extra pickles to Dave's hot and juicy cheeseburger, to swapping a creamy salad dressing for something a little bit healthier. Once a consumer creates their perfect meal, they can store it to their favorites, utilize geolocation to find the nearest Wendy's, even pay for the meal right from their phone. The app has been downloaded over 225,000 times in a few short months. It surpassed competitors to become the first quick-service restaurant to introduce a personalized, nutrition-based application and launch mobile payment in North America. A fast food meal doesn't have to be unhealthy, and the My Wendy's app is serving up customized meals for health-minded consumers.
From the Phineas Gage historical case study to the more present-day nutrition-based app for Wendy's, our next case study is about combining math and physical education across all grades in junior school.
My name is Rachel McCann. I'm a primary school teacher and I'm also the creator of Maths and Movement. Each of the maths outcomes have been created as a physical activity for the children, and that physical activity is then tied into the PE curriculum, so you're able to tick both your maths outcome and your PE outcome at the same time. The children are physically involved in their maths, which means that they are learning so much more while they're engaged in their learning activity.
My name's Richard Ball. I'm a dietitian by trade and I'm currently working on Live Life Well at School, which is dealing specifically with primary schools and actually supporting primary schools to become healthier environments. We concentrate a lot on the fundamental movement skills, which are a set of skills that evidence has shown if kids become confident and competent in these skills, they actually engage in more organised sport and also engage in just general activity out in the playground and play.
My name's Janet Elliott. I'm a teacher at Huntington Public School. I've been teaching at Huntington for over 33 years. I'm really excited about the new Maths and Movements program that's being integrated by Mrs McCann at our school. I think it's a wonderful program because it combines two elements of the curriculum together. And anywhere in a crowded curriculum that you can integrate two components is a plus.
Put them together, save teachers time, but also get kids active, so we're getting them out of their seat and moving and involved in their learning. I'm going to show you the card, and then I'm going to tell you how many minutes more you need to add on. So if that was 10:15 and I told you that you needed to add 10 more minutes, you would need to go from 10:15, 5, 10 minutes more. Hand up if you think your team's going to win.
The national guidelines around physical activity are that kids should be doing 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a day. And we know that less than half of kids aged 5 to 12 are actually meeting those recommendations, which actually places more importance on the school environment for being active at school.
Huntington's a gorgeous little country school in New South Wales, and we're able to integrate a program like Maths and Movement across the whole school so that we can see the benefits for all of the students, be that from kindergarten to year 6. It doesn't matter what level the students are at, they're enjoying being involved in it. It's giving the teacher the chance to be one-on-one with the children that need their help, and it also allows you to give harder options to the children that need to be enriched.
Our overweight and obesity rates in children has tripled since 1985. So now we have 1 in 4 children who are either overweight or obese. Even though that's plateaued due to some great interventions like Live Life Well at School and Munch and Move, hopefully, we've still got a lot of work to do.
As soon as I take the children outside, I'm able to see exactly what they're capable of achieving, and they are loving it.
Just basic things like throwing the ball properly. If you master the throw, that can be javelin, that can be serving in tennis. Okay, so they're sort of the building blocks. And if we can get kids confident and competent in these skills, then we know that kids are more likely to go on and lead active lives.
Nothing would make me happier than for teachers internationally to be together in the fight against childhood obesity, and to know that at the same time as fighting that, we're creating a generation of children who want to do maths because they're finding that it's fun, it's engaging, and they're able to easily understand the topics that they're covering.
So I felt like in that video example, more than any of the other ones that I researched, that you can certainly see the limitations of the case study method and the bias that might be in there. So just to reiterate, a case study involves simply observing what happens to or reconstructing the case history of a single participant or group of individuals, such as a school class or a specific social group. So what do you think? Do you think you could use the case study research design for your problem? Why or why not? Is the focus an individual, an organization, a group, or event? How would you collect data? Take about 5 minutes to think about this. Provide a green check mark when you're ready, and we'll all share our comments together. Thank you.